Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a huge topic, cyber risk management. And yeah, it can feel pretty overwhelming. So we're going to focus on those absolutely crucial first steps, figuring out what your reality actually is and how to gather the right info. By the end, you'll have a clear roadmap to get started. All right, I want to start with a question for you, and it's a big one. Is your company blind to its real cyber threats? And look, it's a serious question because so many companies, they're running on assumptions, not on actual facts. This whole explainer is designed to give you the tools to see your risks with, 20/20 vision. Okay, so before we can even begin to manage risk, we've got to agree on what's real. And I love how the source material puts it. Reality is the state of things as they actually exist. It's the objective truth, completely separate from our opinions, our beliefs, or what we wish was happening. This is ground zero. And this right here, this is the core of the problem. On one side, you've got reality, the actual threat landscape, where attackers really don't care how big or small you are. And on the other side, you've got misbelief, that cozy subjective feeling that, we're too small to be a target. That gap, the space between what's real and what we think is real, that's where disaster happens. It's a huge danger zone. Which, brings us perfectly to our first section, Your Reality is a Risk. And that subtitle really says it all. How misperceptions create dangerous blind spots. It's our own flawed view of the world that often creates the biggest holes in our security.
And check out this quote from Dan Ariely. He's a behavioral economist, and what he says here is so important. See, he's not just talking about being wrong. He calls misbelief a whole psychological and social process. It's deep-seated. It explains how really smart people in really smart organizations can talk themselves into ignoring the facts right in front of them. And understanding that, well, it's not just some academic exercise. It's literally the first step to fixing the problem.
So, if misbelief is the problem, what's the solution? Well, that's what Section 2 is all about, mapping your business universe. The whole idea here is to stop guessing and start mapping, to swap those subjective feelings for a real, objective chart of your world, both inside your company and out. So this map of yours, it's basically got two main territories. First, you've got the internal context. That's everything you can actually control, your people, your technology, your processes. Then there's the external context, and that's everything else, the stuff out there in the world that you can't control, but that definitely has a big impact on you. Nailing down these two sides is the foundation for everything that comes next. So let's dive into that internal context first. And really, you can think of this as your company's DNA. And we're talking about way more than just a list of servers and software. This is about your core business goals, the culture you've built, the controls you already have, and of course, your money and your people. It's about taking a good, honest look at who you are. Okay, so that's the inside. Now let's look outside. The external context is basically the world you live and work in. This is stuff like market trends, new laws and regulations you have to follow, what your competitors are up to, and of course, all the threats that are out there. And here's the thing, you don't get to control these things, but you better believe they control a huge part of your risk. Okay, now this is one of my favorite ways to think about this stuff. It's a framework for understanding your blind spots. You've got this stuff we know, easy. Then we know we don't know, the things you're actively trying to figure out. But the real danger, that lies in the other two boxes. We don't know we know is that hidden expertise on your teams you haven't uncovered. And the big one, we don't know we don't know. That's the black hole. So this whole mapping exercise we're talking about, it's all about pulling those dangerous unknowns out of that last box and into the light where we can actually deal with them. I know what you're thinking. Mapping an entire universe? That sounds impossible. And you're right, it is. The key is to not even try. And that's the entire point of our next section, choosing what not to do. It's all about finding the strategic power that comes from intentionally limiting your focus. And honestly, the strategist Michael Porter just nails it with this quote. He's saying that real strategy isn't about trying to do everything under the sun. It's about being smart and choosing where to put your energy. Because in risk management, if you try to boil the ocean, you'll get nowhere. Focus. That is your superpower here. So how do you actually do that? How do you focus? Well, here's a really practical 5-step process. First, you don't look at the whole company. You pick one important business process. Then you map it out, figure out what assets make it run, and you write down a crystal clear scope.
And then, and this part is absolutely crucial, you check your work with the people who actually do this stuff every single day. All right, so we've picked our spot, our scope is defined, we know where we're going to dig, now we just need the right tools to do the digging. And that brings us to Section 4, your information gathering toolkit. These are the practical ways to actually chart out that risk landscape. So let's take a look at the toolkit. You've got a whole menu of options here. You can review documents, you can send out surveys, you can run workshops, you can even do physical site visits. And then you back all that up with the technical stuff, like automated scans and threat intelligence. The point is, you don't just use one, you use a combination of these to get a really rich, complete picture of what's going on. And here's a pro tip. Always start with the documents you already have. Things like your standard operating procedures, your SOPs, or your business impact assessments, also known as BIAs, or your disaster recovery plans. This tells you how things are supposed to work on paper. And right away, you'll probably start seeing places where what's written down doesn't quite match reality. Yeah, because that official story, it's never the full story, is it? And that's exactly why this next part is so critical. Getting at that undocumented knowledge. You have to talk to people. Workshops, surveys, that's how you uncover how things really get done. All the little tricks, the workarounds, the tribal knowledge that's only in people's heads, that's where the gold is. So we've focused our scope, we've gathered a mountain of data. So now what? That brings us to the payoff. Section 5, from data to strategy. This is where we take that big pile of information and turn it into something we can actually use. A real, actionable plan. And what's the best tool for the job? Well, it's a classic for a reason, the SWOT analysis. You've probably seen it before. It's a super simple but really powerful way to organize your thoughts into 4 buckets: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And here's where it all comes together so beautifully. Remember all that stuff we gathered about our internal world, our people, our tech? Well, that all goes into the strength and weaknesses boxes. And all that external stuff we looked at, the market, the regulations, the attackers, that fills in opportunities and threats. And just like that, you don't have a messy pile of data anymore. You have a strategic map. You can see everything clearly. So, what a journey, right? We've gone all the way from dangerous misbelief to a clear-eyed view of reality. We've mapped our world, we've focused our efforts, we've gathered the intelligence. The map is built. So now, the only real question left, the one you're finally ready to answer, is this: where are your hidden risks?